The alarm bells rang across monitoring station Kepler-7 like the screams of dying metal. Technician Velktar's four eyes widened as he stared at the impossible readings on his screen. For 12 years, he had watched the empty space at the edge of the Centauri system. Nothing ever happened here. Nothing was supposed to happen here. Supervisor, Velktar called out, his voice cracking. I'm getting readings that don't make sense. Supervisor Hickstan walked over with slow, heavy steps. The old Krillian had seen everything in his 40 years of service to the Galactic Empire. Pirate raids, asteroid impacts, even the occasional rogue planet. But when he looked at Velktar's screen, his blue skin turned pale. That's impossible, Hickstan whispered. Space doesn't do that. The readings showed reality itself tearing open like fabric. Energy levels spiked beyond anything their instruments could properly measure. The space in front of them was folding, bending, and twisting in ways that hurt to think about. Then something came through. The ship was massive, easily 3 kilometers long. Its design was unlike anything in the Empire's vast databases. Where Imperial ships were smooth and elegant, this vessel was angular and aggressive. It had sharp edges and flat surfaces that looked like they were built for war. Strange markings covered its dark hull, and weapons that no one recognized stuck out from every surface. Send an immediate alert to Fleet Command, Hickstan ordered. His hands shook as he activated the emergency communication system. Unknown vessel has appeared in Sector 7 Delta. No match in our records. Repeat, we have an unknown contact. The response came quickly. Admiral Zexathari's voice crackled through the speakers. The famous Krillian commander had conquered 17 systems for the Empire. His voice was calm and confident. Station Kepler-7, identify the vessel and order it to stop. If it refuses, mark it for immediate capture. Hickstan tried to contact the strange ship. He sent messages in all 47 known galactic languages. He used standard Imperial greeting protocols. He even tried ancient diplomatic codes that hadn't been used in centuries. The ship ignored every attempt to communicate. Instead, it began moving toward the inner system. Its engines produced energy signatures that their scanners couldn't identify. The technology was completely unknown, operating on principles that seemed to break the accepted laws of physics. It's heading for the core worlds, Velktar reported. His voice was barely above a whisper. At current speed, it will reach Imperius Prime in 6 days. Admiral Zexathari assembled the 23rd Imperial Fleet within hours. 12 capital ships, each one a kilometer long and armed with enough firepower to destroy a moon. 40 escort vessels surrounded them, their crews eager for action. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. No unknown species had ever posed a real threat. The Admiral studied the tactical display from his flagship, the Eternal Glory. The unknown vessel was still moving toward the center of the Empire, ignoring all attempts at communication. Its design suggested advanced technology, but that meant nothing. Every species thought their technology was advanced until they met the Empire. Weapons analysis, Zexathari asked his tactical officer. Unknown energy signatures, Admiral. The hull appears to be some kind of advanced metal alloy. We're detecting what might be projectile weapons, but the readings are unclear. Zexathari nodded. Projectile weapons were primitive. Most species abandoned such crude technology once they developed energy weapons. This confirmed his suspicion that the unknown vessel belonged to a recently spacefaring race. As the Imperial fleet moved to intercept, intelligence officers worked frantically to identify the mysterious ship. The markings on its hull were slowly becoming clearer as they got closer. Strange symbols that looked like letters and what appeared to be a flag with blue background and white stars. UNSC Defiance, Intelligence Officer Kretok read aloud. That appears to be the vessel's name. And below it, something called the United Nations Space Command. Never heard of them, Zexathari replied. Probably some small colony that got lucky with their technology. We'll bring them into the Empire like all the others. But deep in the intelligence database, automated systems were running searches. Every known species, every recorded first contact, every piece of data the Empire had collected over 3 millennia. The search came back empty. No record of humans. No record of a United Nations. No record of any technology matching what they were seeing. On the bridge of the UNSC Defiance, Captain Sarah Chen stared at the approaching fleet through the main view screen. She was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Her ship had been exploring beyond human space when they detected the massive civilization ahead of them. Looks like we found something big, Captain, her tactical officer reported. I'm counting 52 ships moving to intercept us. They're armed and their weapons are powering up. Chen nodded slowly. The Defiance was an exploration vessel, but like all human ships, it was built for war. Humanity had learned long ago that space was not a safe place. Every ship that left Earth was ready to fight for its survival. Have they responded to our communications? Chen asked. Nothing, ma'am. We've tried everything. Standard frequencies, mathematical sequences, even basic pictographs. Either they can't understand us or they don't want to. Chen studied the approaching fleet. The ships were beautiful in a way that human vessels weren't. Smooth lines, elegant curves built by a civilization that valued art as much as function. But their formation was sloppy, their approach predictable. They moved like a people who hadn't fought a real war in generations. Red alert, Chen ordered. All hands to battle stations. Charge the MAC guns and prepare point defense systems. Throughout the Defiance, human crew members rushed to their positions. Marines checked their weapons and armor. Engineers powered up the ship's advanced AI systems. In the depths of the vessel, massive magnetic accelerator cannons hummed to life. The human ship was alone, surrounded by an entire fleet. By every logical calculation, it should have surrendered or tried to run. Instead, it continued on its course, directly toward the center of an unknown galactic empire. Admiral Zexathari opened a channel to the unknown vessel. His message was broadcast on all frequencies in every known language. Unknown ship, you have entered Imperial space without permission. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Comply immediately or face the consequences. The reply came in a language no one recognized, spoken by a voice that sounded almost familiar yet completely alien. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UNSC Defiance. We are explorers from the United Nations Space Command. We mean no harm, but we will defend ourselves if attacked. Please respond if you wish to establish peaceful contact. The translation systems worked frantically, but they couldn't make sense of the alien language. All they could determine was that the message seemed to be some kind of diplomatic greeting. They're trying to communicate, Intelligence Officer Kretok reported. But our systems can't translate their language. Zexathari made his decision. The Empire had protocols for situations like this. Unknown vessels were to be captured, and their crews brought before Imperial authorities. If they resisted, they were to be destroyed as an example to others. All ships moved to capture formation. Disable their engines but keep the hull intact. I want to know what kind of technology they're using. The Imperial fleet spread out in a pattern they had used countless times before. It was designed to surround and overwhelm any single vessel. The formation had never failed. But as they closed in on the human ship, something felt wrong. The unknown vessel wasn't trying to run. It wasn't powering down its weapons. Instead, it was turning to face them directly. Captain Chen watched the alien fleet surround her ship. She had hoped for peaceful contact, but the aggressive formation told her everything she needed to know. These aliens, whoever they were, intended to capture or destroy her vessel. She thought about the families back on Earth, the colonies that depended on explorers like her to find new worlds and new possibilities. She thought about humanity's long history of fighting against impossible odds. All weapons target the lead ships, she ordered. Show them what humans do when cornered. The first shot fired in the battle came from the Imperial flagship Eternal Glory. Admiral Zexathari had ordered a warning blast, a beam of pure energy designed to disable the unknown ship's engines without destroying it. The beam was precisely calculated, delivered with the confidence of a civilization that had conquered the galaxy. The energy blast struck the human ship's shields and scattered harmlessly into space. On the bridge of the UNSC Defiance, Captain Chen watched the readings with grim satisfaction. Human shield technology had been developed through centuries of warfare against everything from pirates to alien invasions. These aliens, for all their numbers, were using energy weapons that human shields were specifically designed to stop. Captain, they just fired on us, Tactical Officer Martinez reported. Looks like some kind of particle beam. Our shields absorbed it completely. Chen nodded. She had hoped for peaceful contact, but the aliens had made their choice. Now she would show them why humanity had survived every threat the universe had thrown at them. Return fire, she ordered. MAC guns full power. Target their flagship. The magnetic accelerator cannon was humanity's answer to heavily armored targets. A tungsten slug weighing several tons, accelerated to 30% of light speed by powerful magnetic fields. It was a simple concept made devastating by human engineering. The projectile crossed the space between ships in seconds. Admiral Zexathari's crew barely had time to register the incoming threat before it struck. The tungsten slug hit the Eternal Glory's shields like the hammer of an angry god. The energy barriers designed to stop particle beams and plasma bolts were completely useless against solid matter, moving at relativistic speeds. The projectile punched through the shields, through the hull, and out the other side of the ship. Impossible! Zexathari gasped as damage reports flooded his bridge. They're using kinetic weapons. Primitive solid projectiles. But there was nothing primitive about the destruction. The tungsten slug had torn through 17 decks, destroying the ship's main reactor and leaving the Eternal Glory dead in space. Emergency power flickered on as the crew struggled to understand what had happened. All ships attack Formation Delta. Zexathari shouted into his communicator. Surround and destroy the unknown vessel. The Imperial fleet moved with practiced precision. Energy weapons lit up space as 47 ships fired simultaneously at the human vessel. Plasma bolts, particle beams, and fusion missiles converged on the Defiance from every direction. Captain Chen watched the light show with calm eyes. Point defense systems activate. All weapons free fire. The Defiance transformed from an exploration vessel into a predator. Hundreds of small guns emerged from hidden ports across its hull. Each one was controlled by an AI system that could track and target incoming projectiles with inhuman precision. The alien weapons, impressive though they were, followed predictable paths. The human point defense systems had been designed to stop hypervelocity missiles fired by enemies who knew exactly how to kill humans. Against these aliens, they were devastating. Plasma bolts and particle beams vanished as the point defense grid tore them apart. Fusion missiles exploded harmlessly as tungsten pellets moving at incredible speeds shredded them before they could reach their target. Their weapons aren't getting through, Martinez reported with amazement. Our point defense is stopping everything. Then let's show them what real weapons look like, Chen replied. The Defiance had been built by a species that understood war. Its weapons weren't just powerful. They were smart. The ship's AI analyzed the alien fleet, identifying weak points and tactical advantages with the cold efficiency of a digital mind designed for battle. Archer missiles launched from hidden bays, each one guided by its own AI brain. Unlike the alien fusion missiles, these weapons were designed to think, to adapt, to overcome any defense. They spread out in complex patterns, confusing alien sensors and making interception nearly impossible. The first Imperial ship to die was the cruiser Stellar. Wind. 3 Archer missiles overwhelmed its defenses and detonated simultaneously against its hull. The ship broke apart in a chain of explosions that lit up the darkness of space. Captain, we're getting communication attempts from the alien fleet, the communications officer reported. They seemed confused. Chen almost smiled. Humanity had fought wars against enemies with superior technology, superior numbers, and superior intelligence. They had learned that confusion was a weapon just as powerful as any gun. The Imperial fleet was learning what human military doctrine really meant. While they had spent centuries fighting primitive species that used predictable tactics, humans had spent the same time fighting each other. Every human military technology had been tested against other humans who were trying just as hard to kill them. Take us into their formation, Chen ordered. Let's show them how humans fight up close. The Defiance accelerated directly toward the center of the Imperial fleet. The alien captains, trained in the elegant warfare of a civilized galaxy, watched in horror as the human ship deliberately entered close combat range. Admiral Zexathari couldn't believe what he was seeing. They're coming straight at us. Don't they understand that we outnumber them 50-1? But Captain Chen understood something the aliens didn't. In close combat, numbers meant less than skill. And humanity had learned to fight in close quarters through millennia of combat experience that these aliens clearly lacked. The Defiance opened fire with every weapon it had. Mac guns sent tungsten slugs through alien hulls like bullets through paper. Laser batteries powered by the ship's fusion reactors cut through enemy vessels with surgical precision. Missile pods launched salvo after salvo of smart weapons that thought faster than alien crews could react. But it was the human crew that made the real difference. Every person aboard the Defiance had trained for this moment. They had run simulations, practiced drills, and studied every possible combat scenario. When the shooting started, they responded with the smooth efficiency of a species that had never forgotten how to fight. Boarding pods incoming, Martinez shouted. The aliens are trying to board us. Chen's smile was cold and hard. Let them come. Marines, prepare to receive guests. The alien boarding pods attached to the Defiance's hull like metal parasites. Inside each pod, Imperial Marines prepared for what they thought would be a routine boarding action. They had done this thousands of times before against primitive species. They had never fought humans. The first thing the aliens noticed was the artificial gravity inside the human ship. It was stronger than they were used to, pressing down on them with the weight of a heavy world. The second thing they noticed was the darkness. Human ships were lit for human eyes, which could see in conditions that left other species blind. The third thing they noticed was the gunfire. Human Marines had been waiting in the corridors, armed with weapons designed to kill other humans in the confined spaces of a starship. They knew every corner, every hiding place, every tactical advantage their ship offered. The battle for the Defiance's corridors was short and brutal. The alien Marines, for all their training, had never faced an enemy that fought with such ferocity in such tight quarters. They retreated to their boarding pods, but found that the humans had cut off their escape routes. On the bridge, Chen listened to the reports with satisfaction. Boarding action repelled. All enemy Marines captured or eliminated. Outside, the battle continued to rage, but the Imperial fleet was learning a hard lesson about human capabilities. Their elegant formations were being torn apart by weapons they didn't understand, operated by minds that thought about warfare in ways they had never encountered. Admiral, one of Zexthari's officers reported, his voice shaking. We've lost 12 ships. The unknown vessel appears to be undamaged. Zexthari stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His fleet, which should have easily overwhelmed any single ship, was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that seemed to know exactly how to hurt them. What kind of species are we fighting? He whispered. Captain Chen could have answered that question. They were fighting humans, a species that had learned to survive by being better at war than anything else in the universe, a species that had turned conflict into an art form and violence into a science. But the aliens would have to learn that lesson the hard way. All remaining ships, retreat to minimum safe distance, Zexthari finally ordered. We need to reassess our approach. The surviving Imperial vessels pulled back, leaving their dead floating in space. For the first time in 3,000 years, an Imperial fleet had been defeated by a single enemy ship. Captain Chen watched them go with cold satisfaction. She had sent a message that would echo across the galaxy. Humanity was not a species to be trifled with. Status report, she ordered. Minimal damage, Captain. Point defense grid at full efficiency. All weapon systems operational. We could do this all day, Chen nodded. The Defiance had been built by humans for humans to human standards. It could indeed do this all day. The question was whether the aliens were smart enough to realize what they were up against. In the depths of space, the human ship waited patiently for the next move in a game that the aliens were only beginning to understand. They were losing. Emperor Valius III sat on his golden throne in the heart of Imperius Prime, reading battle reports that made no sense. In 3,000 years of Imperial rule, no single ship had ever defeated an entire fleet. Yet the evidence was undeniable. 12 capital ships destroyed, 20 escorts damaged or disabled, all by one unknown vessel. The Emperor was a tall, elegant being with silver skin and eyes like blue stars. His species, the Alterans, had ruled the galaxy through superior technology and careful diplomacy. They had never needed to understand true warfare because they had never faced a real threat. Bring me everything we know about these humans, he commanded. Intelligence Director Nexval approached the throne with hesitation. In his long career, he had never had to deliver news this disturbing to the Emperor. Your Imperial Majesty, we have recovered some data from the destroyed ships and intercepted communications from the human vessel. What we have learned is troubling. The Emperor gestured for him to continue. The species calls itself humanity. From a planet called Earth, they appear to have developed space travel only recently, within the last few centuries, but their military technology is unlike anything we have seen. Nexval activated a holographic display showing the human ship's weapon systems. They use kinetic projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds. Their defensive systems are specifically designed to counter energy weapons. Most disturbing of all, Their tactical doctrine suggests a species that has spent its entire existence at war. At war with whom? The Emperor asked. With themselves, Your Majesty. According to the data we recovered, humans have been fighting continuous wars for their entire recorded history. They have developed military technology not for conquest, but for survival against impossible odds. The Emperor leaned forward in his throne. This was a concept he struggled to understand. The Alterans had achieved peace through unity. Most galactic species followed similar paths. The idea of a species that fought itself seemed almost insane. Show me their homeworld, he ordered. The hologram shifted to display Earth, a blue and green world orbiting a yellow star. It looked peaceful enough, but the data told a different story. Their planet has been the site of constant conflict for millennia, Nexaval explained. They have fought wars with primitive weapons, chemical weapons, nuclear weapons, and now in space. Every advance in their technology has been driven by military necessity. How many of them are there? Approximately 8 billion on their homeworld, with colonies on 12 other planets and hundreds of space stations. But Your Majesty, that's not the most concerning part. The Emperor raised an eyebrow. They have no centralized government that we can negotiate with or destroy. Their United Nations Space Command appears to be a military alliance between independent human nations. Destroy one colony, and the others continue fighting. There is no single point of failure. This was truly alien to the imperial mindset. Every species the Empire had encountered had some form of centralized authority. Defeat the capital, capture the leaders, and resistance collapsed. But humans seem to operate on a completely different principle. What about their ship that defeated our fleet? The UNSC Defiance is classified as an exploration vessel, Your Majesty. It's not even a frontline warship according to their military designations. The Emperor felt a chill run down his spine. If their exploration ships could defeat Imperial fleets, what could their actual warships do? I want a full analysis of their military capabilities, he ordered. And I want to know how they fight. Over the following days, Imperial intelligence worked frantically to understand humanity. What they discovered challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare and civilization. Humans, it turned out, were a species shaped by adversity. Their homeworld was a dangerous place with extreme weather, natural disasters, and predators that had forced them to become adaptable survivors. But it was their treatment of each other that had truly forged them into warriors. They have fought wars over territory, resources, ideology, and religion, intelligence analyst Krythan reported to the Emperor. They have developed tactics for every possible scenario. Mountain warfare, desert warfare, urban combat, naval battles, aerial dogfights, and now space combat. But surely they must have some weakness, the Emperor said. That's just it, Your Majesty. Their entire military doctrine is based on the assumption that they will always be outnumbered and outgunned. They plan for defeat and fight anyway. They have developed weapons and tactics specifically designed to allow a smaller force to destroy a larger one. The analyst brought up another hologram, this one showing human military formations. Look at how they organize their fleets. Each ship is designed to operate independently if cut off from the others. Each crew member is cross-trained in multiple roles. They don't have elegant formations because they expect their formations to be broken. The Emperor studied the tactical displays with growing unease. Imperial fleets fought like dancers, moving in beautiful, coordinated patterns that had been perfected over millennia. Human fleets fought like pack hunters, adapting instantly to changing circumstances. They also have something we've never encountered before. Krythan continued. They call it military tradition. Each human soldier carries the knowledge and experience of every human warrior who came before them. They study their own defeats as much as their victories. What do you mean? When they lose a battle, they analyze what went wrong and develop new tactics to prevent it from happening again. When they win, they assume their enemy will learn from the defeat and prepare for a different kind of fight next time. They are constantly evolving their military capabilities. This was perhaps the most alien concept of all. Imperial forces fought the same way they had for centuries because their methods worked. Why change something that brought victory? But humans seem to change their tactics constantly, driven by a paranoid assumption that their enemies were always learning. There's more, Your Majesty, Krythan said reluctantly. We've analyzed their ship construction. Every human vessel is built to fight alone if necessary. They have redundant systems, advanced AI support, and weapons that can be operated by a skeleton crew if needed. Why would they build ships that way? Because they expect to lose ships, Your Majesty. They build every vessel assuming it might be the last one standing. Their exploration ship defeated our fleet because it was designed by a species that knows what it means to be desperate. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. The Galactic Empire had ruled through superior technology and overwhelming force. They had never faced an enemy that assumed it would lose and planned accordingly. What about their numbers? Surely we can overwhelm them with sheer quantity. That's the problem, Your Majesty. We don't know how many ships they have. Their military doctrine emphasizes mobility and independence. They could have 10 ships or 10,000, scattered across space in formations we can't predict. The intelligence reports continued to pour in, each one more disturbing than the last. Humans didn't just build weapons. They built weapons designed to kill other humans who were just as smart and just as desperate. Their military technology had been tested in the ultimate laboratory, wars against their own species. They have something else, Krythan added. Something our psychological analysts are calling the warrior ethos. They don't just fight to win. They fight because losing is not acceptable. They would rather die than surrender. This was incomprehensible to most imperial species. War was politics by other means, a way to settle disputes when diplomacy failed. But humans seemed to view war as a test of survival, where defeat meant extinction. Your Majesty, War Marshal Thekmor interrupted as he strode into the throne room. I request permission to take the 7th Grand Fleet and deal with these humans personally. The Emperor looked at his most successful military commander. Thekmor had conquered 17 star systems for the Empire. He was a brilliant tactician and a seasoned warrior. Marshal, what makes you think you can succeed where Admiral Zexthari failed? Because I won't underestimate them, Your Majesty. I've studied the battle reports. These humans fight like nothing we've ever encountered. But there's still just one ship against 300. The Emperor nodded slowly. Perhaps overwhelming force was still the answer. Even humans had to have limits. Very well. Take the 7th Grand Fleet, but Marshal, be very careful. These humans are not like other species we've conquered. Thekmor bowed deeply. I understand, Your Majesty. I will not make the mistake of treating them as primitives. As the War Marshal left to prepare his fleet, the Emperor remained on his throne, staring at the data about humanity. For the first time in his long reign, he felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Not fear of losing a battle or even a war, but fear of what humanity represented. They were a species that had turned conflict into an art form, that had made war into a science. They were survivors in a way that no other galactic species understood. And somewhere out there in the darkness of space, more human ships were moving toward Imperial territory, carrying weapons and tactics developed through millennia of warfare against the most dangerous enemy any species could face: themselves. War Marshal Thekmor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Invincible Dawn, watching 300 Imperial warships move into formation around him. The 7th Grand Fleet was the largest military force the Empire had ever assembled for a single engagement. It represented the combined might of a dozen star systems and carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. The War Marshal was a veteran of 40 campaigns. His species, the Koranian, were natural warriors with thick armor-like skin and tactical minds that excelled at large-scale warfare. He had studied the defeat of Admiral Zexthari and believed he understood what had gone wrong. The Admiral underestimated the human ship, he told his staff officers. He treated them like any other primitive species. We will not make that mistake. But as Thekmor spoke those words, new contacts appeared on his sensors. Space itself began to tear open in 3 different locations, and more human ships emerged from what his scientists called slip space, a form of faster-than-light travel that Imperial science couldn't explain. The UNSC Indomitable materialized first, a massive vessel even larger than the Defiance. Its hull was scarred from battles fought in distant star systems, and its weapons bristled with the promise of violence. The UNSC Retribution followed, sleek and deadly, built for speed and precision strikes. Finally came the UNSC Perseverance, a fortress ship designed to take tremendous damage and keep fighting. 4 human ships against 300 of ours, Thekmor said calmly. The odds are still in our favor. But Captain Chen, now commanding the small human fleet from the Defiance, understood something the War Marshal didn't. Humans had learned long ago that superior numbers meant nothing if you couldn't use them effectively. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, the alien fleet is moving into a standard encirclement formation. 300 ships in concentric rings around our position. Chen smiled coldly. Standard formation against a standard enemy. Show them why humans don't fight standard battles. The human ships moved with a coordination that surprised the Imperial observers. Unlike the graceful formations of galactic fleets, the human vessels fought like a pack of predators, each one supporting the others while maintaining complete tactical flexibility. Execute Protocol 7, Chen ordered. The UNSC Indomitable suddenly accelerated directly toward the center of the Imperial formation, its massive Mach guns charging for a devastating attack. The Imperial ships moved to intercept, concentrating their firepower on what appeared to be a suicidal charge. But as the Indomitable drew the enemy's attention, the other 3 human ships struck from different directions. The Retribution came in fast and low, using its superior speed to target the Imperial fleet's command ships. The Perseverance attacked from above, its heavy armor allowing it to absorb return fire while delivering crushing blows to enemy vessels. The Defiance, meanwhile, had simply vanished. Where did it go? Thexmore demanded as his sensors lost track of the human exploration ship. Unknown, sir. It appears to have activated some kind of stealth system. The human ship had indeed vanished, but not through any advanced technology. Captain Chen had simply ordered her ship to go completely silent. No active sensors, no communications, no unnecessary energy emissions. It was an old submarine tactic, adapted for space warfare by a species that understood the value of invisibility. The Defiance reappeared behind the Imperial command section, its weapons targeting the War Marshal's flagship with lethal precision. Impossible, Thexmore shouted as tungsten slugs punched through his ship's shields and hull. How did they get behind us? The answer was simple. Humans had been fighting 3-dimensional battles for centuries. While the Imperial fleet thought in terms of standard formations and predictable tactics, the human ships moved through space like sharks through water, striking from unexpected angles and vanishing before the enemy could respond. Admiral, the Retribution's captain reported over the communication link, we're detecting boarding pods launching from multiple Imperial ships. They're trying to board all 4 of our vessels simultaneously. Chen's response was immediate. All ships prepare to receive boarders. Remember, these aliens have never fought humans in close quarters. The Imperial Marines who boarded the human ships thought they were prepared for anything. They had studied the reports from the Defiance's previous engagement and believed they understood what they would face. They were wrong. Human ships weren't just armed with external weapons. Every corridor, every room, every junction was designed as a potential battlefield. The Marines who defended these ships had trained for close-quarters combat in zero gravity, in artificial gravity, in damaged sections where life support had failed. The aliens found themselves fighting in mazes of corridors designed to confuse intruders, against defenders who knew every hiding spot and every tactical advantage. Human Marines, enhanced with military cybernetics and encased in powered armor, moved through their ships like ghosts, appearing long enough to eliminate threats before vanishing into hidden passages. Boarding parties are reporting heavy casualties, one of Thexmore's officers informed him. The humans have prepared their ships for internal combat. How many Marines have we lost? Approximately 60%, sir. The humans are using some kind of advanced armor and weapons we've never seen before. What the aliens didn't understand was that human military technology had been developed through centuries of warfare against other humans. Every piece of equipment, every tactic, every strategy had been tested against enemies who were just as intelligent and just as determined to survive. The powered armor worn by human Marines had been designed to stop weapons created by other humans. The tactics they used had been refined through battles against human opponents who knew all the same tricks. When they fought aliens who had never faced such opposition, the result was devastating. Sir, another officer reported, we're losing ships faster than we can replace them. The human vessels are coordinating their attacks in ways we can't predict. Thexmore watched his tactical display with growing horror. His massive fleet was being systematically destroyed by 4 ships that fought with a coordination and efficiency he had never encountered. The humans weren't just winning individual battles. They were fighting a completely different kind of war. They used electronic warfare to disrupt Imperial communications, making it impossible for the fleet to coordinate effectively. They targeted command ships and supply vessels, understanding that armies needed more than just firepower to function. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to anticipate every Imperial tactic before it was implemented. They're inside our decision loop, Thekmore realized with sudden clarity. They're making decisions faster than we can respond to them. This was the heart of human military doctrine. OODA loops, observe, orient, decide, act, developed through millennia of combat against enemies who were trying to kill them as efficiently as possible. The humans could process tactical information, make decisions, and implement them faster than the Imperial forces could even understand what was happening. War Marshal, his communications officer, called out, "We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. They're requesting to speak with you directly." Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen. She looked calm and professional, not like someone who was outnumbered 75-1. "War Marshal Thekmore," she said in accented but understandable Imperial standard. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Command. I'm calling to offer you terms for surrender." Thekmore couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're outnumbered 300-4. What terms could you possibly offer?" "The terms are simple," Chen replied. "Order your remaining ships to withdraw, and we'll allow them to leave safely. Continue fighting and we'll destroy every vessel in your fleet." "You're bluffing. You can't possibly defeat the entire 7th Grand Fleet." Chen's smile was cold and hard. "War Marshal, in the last hour, we've destroyed 97 of your ships and disabled 43 others. We've lost no vessels and suffered minimal damage. How long do you think your fleet can continue at this rate?" Thekmore looked at his tactical display and realized she was right. His massive fleet was being picked apart with surgical precision. The humans fought with a combination of advanced technology and tactical brilliance that he had never encountered. "What are you?" he asked quietly. "We're humans," Chen replied. "We're explorers, scientists, farmers, teachers, and artists. But when someone threatens us, we become something else. We become soldiers, and we're very, very good at it. How is this possible? Your species has only recently achieved space travel." "War Marshal, my species has been fighting wars for 5,000 years. We've fought with sticks and stones, with swords and shields, with gunpowder and aircraft, with nuclear weapons and orbital bombardments. We've learned to fight in every environment and against every kind of enemy. The only difference now is that we're fighting in space." Thekmore understood, perhaps for the first time, what the Empire was truly facing. Not just a new species with advanced technology, but a race of beings who had turned warfare into a science and conflict into an art form. "You said you were explorers," he said. "We are. But we're explorers from a species that learned long ago that the universe is a dangerous place." Emperor Valius III stood before the great window of his palace, staring out at the capital city of Imperius Prime. For 3,000 years, this world had been the center of galactic civilization, the heart of an empire that stretched across 40,000 star systems. Now, for the first time in his long reign, he wondered if that empire would survive. The reports from War Marshal Thekmore's defeat had shaken the very foundations of imperial power. Not only had 4 human ships defeated the Empire's greatest fleet, but word of the victory was spreading throughout imperial space. Subject species that had accepted imperial rule for centuries were beginning to ask dangerous questions. "Your Imperial Majesty," Intelligence Director Nexaval announced as he entered the throne room, "we have received an urgent communication from the human fleet." The Emperor turned from the window, his expression grave. "What do they want?" "They request permission to send a diplomatic vessel to Imperius Prime, Your Majesty. They wish to establish formal relations between humanity and the Empire." This was unprecedented. No species had ever demanded audience with the Emperor as equals. They came as supplicants seeking to join the Empire or begging for mercy after defeat. But the humans were requesting talks as if they were a sovereign power. "What kind of diplomatic vessel?" the Emperor asked. "A ship called the UNSC Olive Branch, Your Majesty. Our sensors indicate it's lightly armed compared to their warships, but still capable of defending itself." The Emperor considered his options. He could refuse the meeting and continue the war, but the cost would be enormous. The humans had demonstrated capabilities that made them extremely dangerous enemies. Alternatively, he could meet with them and perhaps find a way to avoid further conflict. Grant them permission to approach, he decided, but under heavy escort. I want to know what these humans really want. 3 days later, the UNSC Olive Branch emerged from slip space at the edge of the Imperius system. The ship was smaller than the human warships, but no less impressive in its design. Its hull bore the same angular, aggressive lines that marked all human vessels, but it also carried symbols of peace, white markings that indicated its diplomatic mission. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Olive Branch. promoted from her previous rank in recognition of her victories. She wore the dress uniform of the United Nations Space Command, dark blue with silver insignia that reflected humanity's military heritage. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're being escorted by 20 Imperial warships. They're maintaining weapons lock but haven't powered up their main guns." Chen nodded. The Empire was being cautious, which was smart. But they were also showing respect by not surrounding her ship with overwhelming force. It was a gesture that suggested they were serious about diplomacy. "Open a channel to the Imperial escort." "Commander," she ordered. The face that appeared on screen belonged to a species she hadn't seen before, tall and thin with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. The being wore the uniform of an Imperial Navy captain. "I am Captain Veltar of the Imperial Guard," the alien said formally. "I am instructed to escort you to Imperius Prime for your meeting with His Imperial Majesty." "Thank you, Captain. We appreciate the escort and the opportunity for dialogue." Veltar's expression was unreadable, but Chen could sense his curiosity. She represented something new in his universe, a human, a member of the species that had done the impossible and defeated Imperial fleets. As the diplomatic convoy traveled toward the capital world, Chen prepared for the most important negotiation in human history. She had been chosen not just for her military success, but for her understanding of both human nature and the delicate art of diplomacy. The olive branch descended through the atmosphere of Imperius Prime, a world of impossible beauty. Crystal cities stretched toward the sky, connected by bridges that seemed to float in midair. Gardens filled with alien plants created patterns of color that human eyes could barely comprehend. "Impressive," Chen's aide commented as they watched the city grow larger below them. "Yes," Chen agreed. "This is what a civilization looks like when it's had 3,000 years of peace. Now let's make sure they get to keep it." The Imperial Palace was a structure that defied description, part architecture, part art, part symbol of power that had ruled the galaxy since before humans had invented writing. Chen walked through corridors lined with representatives from dozens of alien species, all of them staring at her with mixtures of curiosity and fear. Emperor Valius III waited in the throne room, a vast chamber designed to inspire awe in visiting dignitaries. The throne itself was carved from a single piece of crystalline material that seemed to glow with its own inner light. "Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Command," the Imperial Herald announced, representative of the species known as humanity. Chen walked forward with confident steps, neither hurrying nor hesitating. She had studied Imperial protocol but chose to follow human customs instead. Rather than kneeling or bowing, she stopped at a respectful distance and nodded politely. "Your Imperial Majesty," she said in clear, careful Imperial standard, "I come here on behalf of humanity to discuss the establishment of peaceful relations between our peoples." The Emperor studied her with ancient eyes. She was smaller than most galactic species, but there was something in her bearing that suggested hidden strength. This was the person who had defeated 2 Imperial fleets, and she stood before him without fear. "Admiral Chen," the Emperor replied, "your species has made quite an impression on my military commanders. Perhaps you would explain why I should treat with you as equals rather than demanding your surrender." Chen smiled slightly. The question was direct, which she appreciated. Diplomatic games were useful, but sometimes plain speaking worked better. "Your Imperial Majesty, you should treat with us as equals because we are equals. My species has demonstrated that we cannot be conquered by conventional means. Continuing this war would cost both our civilizations dearly. With no guarantee of Imperial victory, you are outnumbered by millions to 1, the Emperor pointed out. "Numbers don't tell the whole story, Your Majesty. We've shown that human ships can defeat Imperial fleets. We've proven that our technology is effective against yours. Most importantly, we've demonstrated that humans will fight rather than surrender, no matter the odds." The Emperor leaned forward in his throne. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A treaty of mutual recognition and non-aggression. Humanity will acknowledge Imperial sovereignty over existing Imperial space. The Empire will recognize human space as sovereign territory. We establish trade relations, exchange ambassadors, and agree to settle future disputes through diplomacy rather than warfare." "And if I refuse?" Chen's expression grew serious. "Then this war continues. Your fleets will attack our ships and we will defend ourselves. We will also begin systematic raids on Imperial logistics and communication lines. We will make it impossible for you to govern your empire effectively." The threat was delivered calmly, without emotion, which made it all the more convincing. The Emperor realized he was looking at a species that had thought through every aspect of warfare, including the political dimensions. You would fight a war you cannot win? Your Majesty, we don't think about winning or losing the way you do. We think about surviving, and humans are very, very good at surviving. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment, considering his options. The humans had demonstrated capabilities that made them extremely dangerous enemies. Their technology was effective, their tactics were superior, and their mindset was completely alien to Imperial thinking. More concerning was the effect their victories were having on other Imperial subjects. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy of subject species questioning Imperial authority for the first time in centuries. What assurances can you give that humanity will not attempt to expand into Imperial space? The same assurance we ask from you, a treaty commitment backed by the understanding that violations would restart the war. Humanity is interested in exploration and trade, not conquest. We have no desire to rule other species. Why should I believe that? Chen gestured toward the window, indicating the beautiful city beyond. Your Majesty, look at what your civilization has accomplished. 3,000 years of peace, art, and prosperity. Why would we want to destroy that? We're explorers, not conquerors. We want to learn from you, trade with you, and perhaps become friends, but we will not bow to you. The Emperor found himself in an unprecedented situation. Every species the Empire had encountered had either been easily conquered or posed no real threat. The humans were different, dangerous enough to be respected but apparently reasonable enough to be negotiated with. I will consider your proposal, he said finally, but I want something in return for this treaty. What do you have in mind? Technology exchange. Your weapons and defensive systems are clearly superior to ours. I want to understand how you developed such capabilities. Chen shook her head. I'm sorry, Your Majesty, but we cannot share military technology. However, we would be willing to exchange scientific and medical knowledge, cultural information, and civilian technologies. Why not military technology? Because, Your Majesty, military technology in the wrong hands could threaten human survival.